What did Sassy say to Chatty before they got in the car?
Well, I'm guessing nothing because Sassy doesn't speak.
Mark, it's suspension of disbelief, Mark. It's a joke.
Fine. What did Sassy say?
Get in the car.
That's not. No, Brian.
Yes.
Just, no.
Yes.
Was Sassy carjacking Chatty?
No. It's like, hey, we're gonna go get stuff. Get in the car.
Yeah, no.
Let's get donuts. Get in the car.
Ooh, donuts.
Well, what?
What's the punchline?
What punchline?
What punchline? The punchline from 3 weeks ago.
Oh, that punchline.
Yeah. And?
And what?
Punchline, Brian.
There isn't one.
There what?
That's the joke. April Fools.
If this joke weren't directed at John Graff, I'd be furious right now.
Well, let's face it, even if it had a punchline, it wouldn't have been funny.
Well, that's probably true. Yeah, I'm probably better off.
Now's the time in our show where we like to thank our sponsors.
We're not actually getting any money, since these are fake companies from developer orgs, so they aren't really sponsors.
Hush, I told you last time, don't ruin the sponsor spot.
They're not really sponsors.
Today's episode is brought to you by Edge Communications. For today only, you can get a special rate of 15% increase in your monthly rate by going to thewizardnews.com and typing WizardCast in the search box. Edge Communication, the mobile service providers where your phone is always on the edge of being in service.
That is terrible. You are terrible.
Thank you. I'm dreaming of a Midwest summer.
Brian, stop. Just stop.
But I need to introduce our new segment.
This better not be a segment where you sing.
No, we're going to interview someone.
Oh, okay. Well, who?
Have you met Eric?
Yes?
I did say it was going to be a stupid intro.
Yes. You succeeded.
Yeah.
You completely left me with any ability to say or do anything.
Well, other than say yes.
Yeah, pretty much.
Because, yeah, okay, I should really stop watching How I Met Your Mother.
You for multiple reasons. I mean, the quality tapers off after a certain point. I mean, the first few seasons fantastic, and then it's just downhill.
Oh, I just watched the first episode over and over again.
Oh, then you're fine.
Yeah.
I think. You might have other problems, though.
So, Eric.
Yeah.
Midwest Dreamin is coming up in July.
We should probably introduce Eric.
We did introduce Eric.
You just sort of did.
We
didn't. We said, hey, here's Eric.
Yeah.
Mark, Brian asked if you met me, and what you forgot to say was you actually came to one of my user group meetings in Evansville, Indiana.
I did, exactly.
When Brian, I'm getting you guys confused already.
We do look so much alike.
And Brian joined the meeting too, but he was sitting on an iPad on a desktop.
We are too much alike. He's my brother from a nation mother.
Oh my God.
So, this is Eric Dreschfield, everybody.
Hello, everyone.
If you didn't, he is user group leader of the, what is it,
Southern Indiana user group.
And also the man responsible, so you know who to point your fingers at, for Midwest Dreamin.
Yep, I take the blame for that one.
Also
or the credit.
known as the Kevin Bacon of the Salesforce ecosystem.
I suppose that's true, too.
Bacon.
Bacon's always a good thing, yes.
So Midwest Dreamin, that's when everyone takes a look at the Midwest during early spring and thinks, oh, I wish I could be there.
Yeah.
For those of us who live in the Midwest in early spring, we start sneezing and thinking, I wish I lived where there weren't allergies.
And, stable weather patterns.
Yeah, that's for sure.
So, all right. For those people who may not actually know what Midwest Dreamin is, what is it, Eric?
Well, Midwest Dreamin is what we like to call the world's largest community-driven user conference for Salesforce users. And by community-driven, I mean it's entirely planned by members of the community, organized by members of the community, run by members of the community. So it's kind of like the of the people, for the people, and by the people thing.
And for the
related
most
to
part, funded by the community.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, it is funded by all the partners that we get to show up at the event as sponsors, with a little bit of help from the people who attend. But that is true. So
And when is it this year?
it is July 21st and 22nd. That's 101 days from now, roughly. Not that I'm counting, but I am.
Clearly.
Yes. So Thursday, July 21st, it will kick off sometime in the afternoon. We haven't quite nailed down the exact schedule yet, but we are planning a reception and a demo jam like we had last year. The demo jam is probably going to be a little bigger than last year, a few more participants.
Nice.
And it's actually going to spill over into the second day because we're putting some competition into this year's demo jam. The demo jam this year is sponsored by the App Exchange, so they have offered trophies for the top 2 or 3 partners who participate in the demo jam. So what our plans are is on the first day we'll run through all the 3-minute demos by each of the partners, and everyone in the audience will vote and tell us who they think their favorites were. And then on the second day, we will invite back probably the top 3 to do their dog and pony show one more time in front of the crowd. And then at the closing keynote, we will announce the winner and award the trophy.
Cool.
Nice.
Very cool.
So we're now gamifying the demo jam, if you will.
So this would be, how many Midwest Dreamings have there been? 3, 4?
This is number 4. It is the third consecutive. The very first one was in 2011, and that was it was actually started for purely selfish reasons, because in 2010, when I first got hot and heavy into the ecosystem, I was unable to attend Dreamforce because the company I was working for had already allocated all their budget for everyone else in the company who was attending. A lot of senior management people and people with job titles way longer than mine back then. And so I couldn't go. So I thought, oh, well, that stinks. I'd love to go. So let's create this little event and see if I can bring a little bit of the Dreamforce feel to me. So in 2011, it was held at the Galt House Hotel in Louisville, Kentucky. And I had about 100 people show up for a one-day event. Again, fully funded by partners who were sponsoring the event. Had a little help from Salesforce back then too, with a little bit of dollars on that one, but not a whole lot. And it was a good day, in my opinion. We had a couple of concurrent tracks going. We had a few sessions that were all admin and end user type sessions, and then with Josh Burks' help, we had a full day of developer training going on at the same time for the beginning Force.com and Apex kind of development. Of course, I, being the guy running the show, didn't get to enjoy a lot of the content. I was too busy running around with like a chicken with my head cut off, trying to make sure everything was doing the way it was supposed to. So I learned a little since then. And now I have a team of people helping me, a team of awesome people, and I'm going to try to remember everybody and not leave anybody out. And so Denise Carboni, who leads the Chicago user group, Salesforce MVP a few times over, is a big help to me. She's kind of like the project manager for this thing. She's the slave driver, if you want to call her that, and be nice about it. She keeps us all on track and makes sure everybody knows what their responsibilities are and when things need to be done. So it's a real help and a real blessing to have someone with that kind of skill, because I'm probably not the greatest on some of that stuff. And then Andy Ognanoff from the Wisconsin group. You're very familiar with him, Brian, I'm
A-
sure.
a-
And
a
Mark,
tad.
I know you know him a little well too. Andy's kind of our behind the scenes systems guy, if you will. He handles the more technical stuff from what do we need in the way of audiovisual equipment to how do we get the Eventbrite system to properly talk to our Salesforce org so that when we take a registration, we don't have to key in the data a second time. So Andy's a big help with all that kind of stuff, and it should be pretty interesting this year. We may be trying a new tool for the partners as far as badge scanning, so they can track who comes to visit them at their booth. So we'll see how that goes. We're still kind of in the final processes of determining which of two options we want to use for that. And then Dale Ziegler, who is, I know, Mark, you know Dale really well because he's in Kansas City,
Represent.
where you are. Yep. He has taken over the role of our content manager this year. It was previously held for a few years by Lena Hofer out of Minneapolis.
So he's the guy you got to bribe. Okay.
You could say that, but it's interesting the way we're doing the content this year. Those of us on the content committee who get to vote on which sessions make it into the show, we don't actually know who submitted them. All we see is the title and the description of the session. So
what we should have done was put our name in the title or the description of the session.
Oh, yeah. That would work.
And there were a few people who did that, so it sort of defeats the purpose of our blind system a little bit, but not a whole lot.
Brian.
I mean,
Hey, I purposely redacted that line.
That's true.
But anyway, so it's an interesting theory that we're trying to do, and we got the idea from Mary Scotton of all people, the very big voice at Salesforce about diversity and making sure that everybody is treated equally no matter what.
And Dreamforce does that.
Yes,
Dreamforce
absolutely.
That's how they select. For people who put out in the call for speakers for Dreamforce, they do the exact same thing. There are no names. There's no information at all about whoever is submitting.
Yeah. So, and Mary approached me about 2.5, 3 months ago with that idea. And I thought, you know what, that's a fabulous idea. And from the discussions I had with Mary, the whole conversation kind of went around what this probably will do is lead to a much more diverse group of people who are speaking at the event, more gender diversity, more ethnic diversity, probably more first-time speakers, possibly fewer MVPs. Not that we don't like MVPs, of course, since all three of us are. But, not everybody speaks well sometimes. So we're going to try it. We're going to see how it works. I have a feeling it's going to be really well and make the event even a little more awesome than it has been in the past. So that's pretty cool. And then we also added Nick Lindberg. He's Twin Cities area as well to the mix, and he's kind of our volunteer coordinator. Nick does a ton with nonprofits in his professional life, so it kind of was fitting to bring him into the Midwest Dreamin team and kind of have him coordinate the volunteer efforts of everybody who's going to be there as a staff member, if you will, to direct people to their proper rooms, to help get people registered and checked in, to hold up the little red flags that tell the speakers your time's up, to all that kind of stuff. So glad to have Nick on board and helping us with that as well. And then I knew there was one person I was going to forget, but I'm not. It's Jen Nelson from Chicago. She has rejoined the team. She took a year off last year and did not help us last year, but did a couple years ago. So she's rejoined the team, and she's going to take over the post-sale treatment of the partners, if you want to think of it that way. So she's kind of like vendor relations, and she'll be the one who manages the process of the partners picking their expo table booths and the locations on the map and things like that, and making sure that they're getting what they need for the day of the show and things like that. So glad to have everybody on board. It makes it a lot easier when we have a good team like that, and we all work well together, and everybody seems pretty dedicated to the cause, so it's pretty cool.
That's a lot of people. But you practically need a lot of people for this kind of thing.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, last year we had almost 700 people attend.
Wow. 7 times than the attendance of the first one.
Yeah, and in 2014 we were right at about 500 in attendance, so we had a pretty big jump from 14 to 15. So for 2016, we're actually expecting somewhere in the neighborhood of 900 to 950. I've heard a few team members toss around the idea of hitting 4 digits and seeing if we can bring 1,000 people to the event.
Can the Navy Pier manage that number of people? I mean, is it going to sink?
Yeah, no. Hopefully it won't sink. They didn't actually tell us anything about weight restrictions. But as far as the physical size of the space that we have planned out, we've got enough room for that many people. The keynote room that we've got can hold probably double that, could probably hold 2,000 to 2,500. The breakout rooms are anywhere from about 110 to 350, and we can kind of reconfigure those with those little walls that disappear between rooms if we need to. So there's plenty of space for 1,000 people if 1,000 people decide they want to come, and honestly, I think that would be pretty awesome if they did. So
indeed. So here's the thing: like, I've been to Midwest Dreamin twice now, and especially last year, it was starting to get a little bit crowded at times,
especially like in the expo hall area.
Yeah, yep. And if you're moving up to that number of people, getting to 4 digits, are you guys like considering moving to another venue? Because even Navy Pier is going to have trouble accommodating you.
Yeah, that's true. And we have had some discussions about possibly moving it somewhere else for 2017. It's one of those tough decisions in my mind. I mean, we've been at Navy Pier for a while now, and we have a really great working relationship with the team at Navy Pier. I'm on a first-name basis with their catering manager and their sales manager, and anytime I email them with a question, they're always very good to respond, very quick to respond. And they've worked well with our situation, knowing that we really don't have a down payment of sorts to put up any front money, because all the money we get to pay for the event comes from all the sponsors and the attendees. And so we can't really pay the bill until we get some sponsors. And that was kind of the hard part at the very beginning, was how do you schedule an event and publicize it when you can't put any money down to guarantee the date of the event until you have an event to advertise or something like that. It's kind of like that, the classic catch-22. But they worked well with us the very first year, not the very first year, the very first year at Navy Pier in 2014. One of our sponsors generously said, well, I'll help you guys with the upfront money so you can guarantee your date. And we are still eternally grateful to Spring CM for that help. And Spring CM will be back with us again this year. I think that's their 3rd year in a row now as one of our sponsors. So we're looking forward to that too.
Most excellent.
All right. So how about tips for people who are attending? Because I've gone the last couple of times, and I remember, I think the one that threw me the most was how difficult it was to find breakfast at the Navy Pier after I left my hotel.
My hotel was by Dunkin' Donuts, so that was okay.
Oh yeah, there you go. So yeah, that's a good question, Brian. And we're still we may try to bring in a little bit of breakfast this year if the budget will allow it. And that, of course, kind of all depends on how many sponsors we get. But then you're running up on the other side of that fence where if you get too many sponsors, it gets too crowded in the expo hall. So it's a fine line you're running there to keep a balance going with all that stuff. But yeah, I wish I had some tips on breakfast. I'm not from Chicago, so I don't really know the area quite as well as some others do.
So we were stayed by a McDonald's that was at the very front in the Navy Pier.
Okay. And you know what? I remember that because you brought me.
I brought you food.
Sandwich. You did.
Yes, I never did invoice you for that, I should say.
I'll buy your breakfast this year.
Yeah. And you can ignore the sign that there's a Dunkin' Donuts in the Navy Pier, because what if that is just a place that kind of like sells it like a little market, but it's not open. That early.
Yeah.
So
Google Maps lies.
Yes, plan on eating breakfast before you get there. Bonus if you can get it at the hotel as part of your hotel fee.
Yeah. And speaking of hotels, we do have one hotel this year with a ton of rooms that are going to be in a block for Midwest Dreamin. Last year we had rooms scattered over 4 or 5 different hotels. And I believe last year the cheapest rate we got was $189 and that was probably only for the first like 40 or 50 rooms. This year we have close to 180 rooms available for the attendees, and the rate is only $199.
Oh.
So really a fabulous rate for the Chicago area. The hotel is very close to Navy Pier, but if you don't feel like doing the 10 to 15 minute walk to Navy Pier or spending money on Uber, one of the things we are adding this year is actually transportation to and from the hotel to the Navy Pier at no charge to the attendees. So we worked out a nice deal with the hotel and managed to build into that a contract with the Chicago Trolley Service. So they will be providing transportation to and from for 2 hours at the beginning of the day and 2 hours at the end of the day on both days of the event.
Nice.
So we're looking forward to that. That should bring a little bit of benefit to the attendees. They won't have to figure out their own way to get there. They won't have to pay to park down at Navy Pier, which is, if I remember right, was about $21, $22 for the whole day.
And less driving you have to do in Chicago is always a good thing.
Yeah,
Oh,
definitely.
God.
Especially because GPS, for those folks who use GPS on their phones,
Exactly.
once you get into downtown, all those tall buildings block your GPS signal. So,
Yeah.
Not to mention driving on the lower roads.
on the lower roads. So
that's
have
right.
a good idea generally what you're trying to do before you get to there, because once you get there, you cannot trust your GPS directions at all.
You can't even follow a map, like an actual paper map, because those lower roads just completely screw over any attempt you're making to try and follow what's going on.
Yep. I got bit by that bug last year once when I was in Chicago.
Yeah.
My wife and I and our kids came with me to the event last year, so they could kind of enjoy the city while I was in the event. And we were trying to find a place to eat dinner one evening while we were still in town after the event was over. And we were down on the lower road, and the place we were looking for was on the upper road, and we had a heck of a time trying to figure out how to get up there without just like abandoning the car and climbing some stairs. Take advantage of our trolley service this year to get you from the hotel to the Navy Pier.
Amen.
And you will notice I did not specify which hotel yet, because we're going to release that on the website at the same time as when we open up registration, which should be coming up here. I believe we're targeting the end of this week, actually, to have registration live.
Nice.
After everyone is poor from paying their taxes. Good choice.
Right.
Good choice.
Well, you probably won't have to actually pay for your hotel just yet, but you will need to pay for the registration fee for Midwest
Which
Dreamin'.
is what this year?
Which, for the early bird people who register early, that was kind of repetitive, it's only going to be $75. A slight increase from last year, but we got more expenses this year, and that's probably the downside to holding this event at Navy Pier. It's a fairly expensive place to host an event. The labor that's involved with setting up all the facilities and getting all the equipment in there that we need is all union labor, so it gets a little pricey. But like I said earlier, it's a really great facility, and we're definitely hoping to improve on the signage this year over last year to help people understand where they need to go better than last year.
Now, last year I know we had some really nice speakers came in for keynotes. And the first 2 years ago, we also had people from Salesforce. So I think last year was Peter Caffey and Dan Darcy.
Right, that's correct.
So who's it going to be for 2016?
So this year, in the spirit of doing things better than last year, we are upping our game, and we're actually going to have 3 keynotes this year. One on Thursday as part of the opening festivities, and that's going to be a community keynote, if you will, provided by none other than Erica Cool.
Woo!
Yeah.
Erica was pretty thrilled that we moved the date back a few weeks compared to the past couple years, because now it does not occur when her birthday is occurring. She usually has nice little family trips planned around her birthday. So
now we can throw her a birthday party.
I like to tell her we pushed it back just so she could come, but the reality of it is the same weekend that we used in the past was unavailable. But we'll let Erica think that we did it just so she could come.
Yep. Plug your ears in that last few minutes there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Huh? What? What am I supposed to cut out?
So So after Erica speaks on the first day, then on the day two, the main content day, we're going to have an opening and a closing keynote. We're still trying to figure out who's going to do which one, but Peter Coffey's coming back. He's doing the three-peat, and I suppose that's a Chicago joke with basketball, and even just the fact that his name's Peter.
I'm sorry, what was that, Eric? You're calling Chicago a joke?
No. Just the whole three-peat thing. Didn't the Bears? Holy cow, that's not basketball.
Oh,
Didn't
Bears.
the Bulls do some three-peat or four-peat on a championship at some point in the
5? I thought they had 5-peat.
Okay, so we've got 2 more years. We still need to bring Peter Coffey back. Okay, I bet we can manage that. It might have been. Obviously,
All I know is
not a
any
Bulls
chance
fan.
I have. All I know is any chance I have to hear Peter Coffey speak. I take that. I take that
Yeah.
opportunity.
Yeah, and that's one of the main reasons we asked him to come back this year is because there's a ton of people who just enjoy hearing him speak. So we knew that would be a draw to get some people to come just knowing Peter was going to be there. So our third keynote speaker is somebody who's relatively new to Salesforce as an employee, but not new to the ecosystem, and that would be Vala Afshar, who came from Enterasys Networks before being at Salesforce, and he is the chief digital evangelist for Salesforce, and he's been with the company now, I want to say close to about 9 months or so. And Vala and I have been we've been Twitter friends for probably about 3.5 to 4 years now. Had a lot of conversation with him, a lot of great interaction over lots of things, mostly Salesforce related, but never met the guy in person. I tried each of the last 2 years at Dreamforce to find the time to connect with them, and our schedules never meshed properly, and it didn't happen. So when I shot him the email and said, hey, we've got this little event called Midwest Dreamin. We're looking for a keynote speaker. Are you interested? It was like 2 minutes later, he responded back and said, count me in. So it was cool. I'm
cool.
pretty thrilled for that and looking forward to actually getting to shake the guy's hand for once.
Yeah, I hope we get a chance to meet him too, because I swear he's on the front of my Twitter feed almost every time I check.
Oh my God!
Yeah.
How does he tweet that much?
Bots.
How does one man?
I'm sure a lot of it's programmed.
Yeah,
That's-
I would
you have
imagine
to
he
wonder.
schedules a lot of it, but that's true. I mean, he definitely tweets 24/7, and he's always sharing really cool information, really good stuff. Lots of neat little statistics about people and how they behave and things like that. So yeah, definitely someone to follow if you're not already following him on Twitter. That's for sure.
Definitely.
If for nothing else than some of the cool little GIFs videos that he sometimes shows.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely true.
All right, so 3 keynote speakers, tons of sessions, a bunch of folks in the expo hall that are generously donating money to make sure the event is comes off, and
Something off.
something off. I'm off. Is there anything else we haven't talked about yet, Eric?
You know what? We haven't talked much about breakout sessions other than how we're doing it. And in reality, now that I started this conversation about breakout sessions, I really can't tell you much about them yet. We haven't finished the process of reviewing and deciding which ones are going to make it in and which ones are going to have to try again next year.
Well, how many are you planning on having?
We are looking at somewhere in the neighborhood of 35 to 40, which I believe is just a little bit more than we had last year. We are tossing around the idea of adding a few breakout sessions on Thursday, kind of like pre-event sessions, if you want to think of it that way.
Are
But
these
we're
ideas
still-
made of glass? Because if you're casually tossing them around, that could have repercussions.
Yeah, not really. Yeah,
Shattered dreams.
yeah, really.
broken
There,
hearts.
there may be some of those for people who don't get selected, but they'll try again next year, I hope.
Them's the breaks, people. Watch it
Yeah.
be us. Watch it be
We
us.
do have, and I mean, with that 35 or 40 sessions planned, the last time I looked, we had close to 75 submissions, which is about the same ratio we had last year. It was about 2 to 1 last year on the number of submissions versus the number of sessions we actually had. So I'm personally really thrilled to see that many people submitting and wanting to speak at the event.
So that means, Mark, that we have a semi-reasonable chance of actually speaking this year.
Wait, really? With those odds?
Yeah. 35 sessions, 75 people selected. We submitted 2. That means there's a 35 and 75 chance that one of our sessions will be picked. So we have 35 by 75 times 35 by 75, which I forget what the actual multiplication
You're doing
would
math.
be.
What is going on? What is?
Yeah,
I don't.
You
what?
asked really, and I'm laying it down what the actual probability would be.
I think
Better
Brian's
than winning the Powerball.
trying to say you might have one session selected to present this year.
Okay.
Maybe.
And if we get
But yeah,
really,
definitely
really
better than
lucky,
a Powerball.
it'll be the session that we don't have to do a lot of work for.
Hopefully.
True. That would be nice for you guys.
I think regardless if we are doing it as a formal session, I think Mark and I are planning on being there, and we'll plan on recording something at Midwest Dreamin. It's almost a requirement, because last year we did it when we spoke with Phoebe.
Yep.
Yeah. Who has sadly moved on to a different company. So hopefully our guest that we're planning...
What?
Didn't Phoebe leave?
You didn't know that?
I didn't know that.
She's been gone from Salesforce for a few months now.
Yeah.
What the hell?
She is at a little organization known as Facebook now.
Oh,
Safe harbor.
Yeah.
Well, I learned something new.
There you go. My work here is
That's
done.
a safe harbor there, Mark. Yeah, so hopefully our special guest this year will not leave Salesforce shortly after we interview her.
Oh.
So, yes.
So you guys are to blame. Now I get it.
We've had a few guests that we've interviewed from Salesforce leave the company shortly after we interview them. It's been very interesting to me.
Well, at least I don't work for Salesforce, so I won't be changing jobs soon. So I want to do one quick little how you can keep up with what's going on with Midwest Dreamin plug.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We do have our website, midwestdreamin.com. Imagine that.
Is
very,
that with or
very
without
creative.
the G?
That is without the G, midwestdreamin.com. And then you can also follow us on Twitter at Midwest_Dreamin, again, without the G. And, of course, then on the Salesforce Success community, there is also a Midwest Dreamin group without the G, of course.
Do you find that makes things difficult at all? Like people are like searching for the G, and it just like completely throws off because that like what was the I know I'm going back to questions here. What was the decision on that? Why drop the G?
It's a colloquialism with a little apostrophe.
Yeah, and to be perfectly honest, I was the guy who thought of the name like back in 2011. And we'll throw a little bit more color on that comment. In 2011, when I was working on the very first one, I had a different name in mind for the event originally.
Ooh, what was that?
And I hate to say it, I don't recall, but it had the word force.
That's a terrible name. I don't recall. No one would remember it.
It had the word force in it somewhere.
Was it Force?
And I don't think that
Force
was it.
for
Maybe
force?
it was like, I don't know. Maybe I can find it if I dig through some
Midwest
emails.
Force?
Maybe that was it. I don't know. But I had
I'm
some
glad you changed
conversations going on with some people at Salesforce to figure out some things about the event and make sure that what I was going to do was okay with them. And at one point, one of them said, "Well, you can't use the word force in your title,
Yeah,
in your
they're
event
really,
title."
people don't know this. They are really actually hard on that. They don't like anybody else using force for anything. That's why like the App Exchange doesn't have like a ton of things called like CRM force or HR force or things like that. They don't like it.
Yeah.
Which is also why we're not Wizard Force.
Yeah.
Well, better that than forced wizards, I suppose.
We
I
don't
don't know.
like to
Maybe
be
not.
forced.
It's consensual wizards always.
There you go. So I came up with the name Midwest Dreamin when whatever force I was trying to come up with didn't work for Salesforce, and it just sort of stuck.
Yeah. The way I like to think about it to help me remember that it has no G is I think of it like a drive-in theater, right? It's a dream-in. We're going into we're going into an event to dream.
Very nice.
In the Midwest.
That works.
Yes.
That's good. I like that. I may have to quote you on that one sometime in a blog post soon.
Trademark Brian Kwong 2016.
Oh, darn. I'll seek your
Copyright
permission first then.
Copyright.
You're an ass.
Yes, I am.
Ah.
And now the dulcet tones of the wizard ass. Okay.
Okay, next
Yeah,
episode we'll be recast as Wizard Ass.
Oh, please edit that out.
No. There's nothing we can follow up.
No.
Yeah,
Thank you very
that's gonna
much,
be hard to
Eric,
follow.
for joining us today, especially since I know you're hopping all over the world.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. I certainly am more than willing to always talk about Midwest Dreamin' without the G, of course.
Without, of course.
So we'll see you hopefully in July.
Awesome. Looking forward to it.
Now it's time for our Salesforce video of the undetermined amount of time until the next one.
The video of this episode is the Service Cloud keynote, a new era in service for the connected world.
Whoa, hang on, really?
Yeah.
Really, Brian?
Yeah.
We're going to showcase a keynote how many months after Dreamforce?
Well, first off, it wasn't part of Dreamforce. I'm pretty sure it was 2 weeks ago. And secondly, it was done by Todd Enders.
How can you have a keynote 2 weeks ago?
Because, they do world tours. There are other keynotes other than Dreamforce.
Oh.
Midwest Dreamin', they have keynotes.
Okay. All right.
There's more conventions
should have said that.
than it's a keynote. I didn't think I
should
needed...
have said that. No, you do.
The keynote is in the name of the title. I didn't think I had to
but they have
specify
keynotes.
where it's from.
They have keynotes at Dreamforce. One would assume that if you did not say Salesforce World Tour Service Cloud keynote, that it's the only other place they have Service Cloud keynotes is at Dreamforce. I'm sorry, Brian. You failed.
There's more video
Failed.
providers than YouTube, and we don't have to say it's a YouTube video every time.
Maybe we should.
I'm mainly doing this because the keynote was done by Todd Enders.
Well, okay. He's cool. He is a wild and crazy guy at Salesforce.
Yeah, or as he likes to say, he's a special snowflake. I particularly like the highlight for connected services. I mean, there's some really cool stuff that people can do now.
Is that like IoT? What is? Well, I guess we'll let him talk.
Yeah, you listen to him.
It's amazing that statistic that 85% of the time when you're put on hold is because the customer information is spread around so many different places and applications.
It's shocking. It's not like they don't have your record. Their record is right there. But they have to go and figure out, hey, if you're looking up for when your warranty expires, where do you have to actually go? I mean, it's just shocking. Just shocking.
Shocking.
And this is a waste of a potential lightning pun.
You're a waste of a potential lightning pun.
What does that even mean?
I don't know.
WizardCast is produced by Brian Kwong and Mark Ross, directed by Brian Kwong and Mark Ross, technical administration by Brian Kwong and Mark Ross, script writing by Brian Kwong and Mark Ross, audio editing by Brian Kwong and Mark Ross, website maintenance by Brian Kwong and Mark Ross, evil plans by Brian Kwong and Mark Ross. And our intern this episode was that one guy from down the street. You know, the one with the hat and the beard who always seems to be looking at you as you get in and out of your car, but never is looking at you when you look directly at him. And yet every time you drive or walk by their house, you kind of see the curtains flutter really quickly as if they were looking out them towards you. Yeah, that guy.
Send us your interview suggestions, jokes, videos, tips, and feedback to wizardcast@thewizardnews.com or head over to thewizardnews.com and click Contact WizardCast.
Don't forget to subscribe to WizardCast and receive our next episode automagically. Once again, I'm Brian.
And I'm slightly scared of the people in my neighborhood now.
Thanks for listening. Will you still work with and respect me when I'm old and witless?
Yes, I do.
We landed, we walked away from the landing, so as most of my former pilot friends at the airline I used to work with would say, that's a good landing.
Yeah. Quack McDuck would agree with you. Or Launchpad McDuck.
I was going to say, who the hell are you talking about? Quack Maduff? Who is that? That sounds like a euphemism. Is this somebody in San Francisco you've met, Brian?
Could be.
Quack Maduff?
Quack McDuff.